your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Prime Minister backs U.S. military action against cartels. Pioneers in excellence. Tobago students honored. Intruder sexually assaults pensioner in Princestown. And internationally, Typhoon Kajiki forces mass evacuations in Vietnam. Now for the details. Prime Minister Kamla Persad-Bissessar says TNT fully supports the U.S. government's deployment of military assets to destroy terrorist drug cartels operating in the southern region. Her comments came on the eve of the arrival in southern Caribbean waters of 3 U.S. naval destroyers and a nuclear submarine. The deployment would see the arrival of more than 4,000 Marines and sailors as part of an exercise to target drug cartels. She said the U.S. has made no request for its military assets to use TNT for any military action against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's government. But Persad-Bissessar warned the Venezuelan government that TNT would be prepared to give the U.S. access to its territory should Venezuela invade Guyana. In a statement issued by the Office of the Prime Minister on August 23rd, Persad-Bissessar said the only persons who should be worried about the activity of the U.S. military are those engaged in or enabling criminal activity. The Tobago House of Assembly has recognized the island's top performers in the 2025 SEA exams, as well as students who made the 2024 CSEC and Cape Merit lists. At the Pioneers in Excellence ceremony, Secretary of Education Zorisha Hackett praised the honorees as proof that Tobago's youth are capable of greatness. Future Speaker Ann Therium Lewis, who earned 12 grade 1s at CSEC this year, encouraged the students to embrace balance, discipline, and community service as part of their journey to excellence. Among those honored were SEA students Say Shelley Duncan, Kylie Charles, Zaid Ewing, Demarcus Walcott, and Janiyah Waldron. An elderly woman was sexually assaulted and robbed by an intruder at her Princestown home on Saturday morning. The victim told police that she had locked and secured her home and retired to bed, but was awoken by a male suspect armed with a kitchen knife at around 1:30 a.m. The man, whom she described to police as being of fair complexion, slim build, a tattoo on his arm, clean-shaven with straight black hairstyle with a fade, began touching her inappropriately and then sexually assaulted her against her will before escaping. Her home, she told police, had been ransacked and its metal burglar-proof gate bent. Her cell phone was also discovered missing. Officers attached to the Princestown police station visited the scene and checked for the suspect without success. They also identified locations with CCTV footage. The victim was examined at the Princestown Health Facility. Investigations are ongoing. Internationally, Typhoon Kajiki has battered Vietnam's central provinces with strong winds and heavy rain, forcing nearly 600,000 people to evacuate. The storm, with wind speeds topping 130 kilometers an hour, has been compared to last year's deadly Typhoon Yagi, though it has weakened slightly since making landfall. Authorities suspended flights, train services, and road travel in several provinces, while Thailand has also issued weather alerts for 58 provinces as the storm moves westward, warning of flash floods and landslides. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Truthfully, I did not necessarily see this coming. The big debate, there are actually a couple of national issues, but the big debate seems to still be, of course, this US-Venezuela thing, which, ironically, disclaimer, before I get into the actual weeds and analysis, and some of it includes domestic analysis, right? Not just necessarily about the issue, but how in the pursuit of winning the debate, certain people just could not help but expose themselves to self-hatred, open themselves up for further criticisms, open up a can of worms with regards to things that happened in the past, not necessarily that far in the past. But this is very strange. And one of the things overall that I find very alarming, although to some extent it's within the brand of our local politics, is the poor analysis / lack of professionalism or technical ability in complex matters like this on both sides. Because let me be upfront, the ambassador to CARICOM should not have said what he said, not without prior approval, because it directly contradicts what the Prime Minister said. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, him potentially not being in line with the Prime Minister isn't quite as bad. He's taken a neutral default position, and then she, you know, as the leader decided, no, I'm going to make a decisive statement, which is in line with where she more or less was on this issue for the most part for the last, I don't know how many months, years, right? But the ambassador to CARICOM was a little, you know, he jumped the shark. He went a little too far. Meanwhile, the opposition, both active and retired, are tripping all over themselves and in some cases exposing their past record to further scrutiny in an attempt to win this debate, which I find is extremely hilarious, to be honest. Kind of sad, and it makes it very difficult because, believe it or not, I don't want to disrespect anybody. I tried really hard not to jump on the bandwagon to just outright disrespect then Minister of National Security Hines. It's just that if you keep pushing, you'll end up in the Alwari territory, where you're doing nonsense on purpose, and it's very hard to kind of, and I'm not talking like I'm vexed and I start to have hatred. It's more like disappointment and resignation. You know, like there's a reluctance because it's like, I don't want to dislike what you're doing, because then you know, you run the risk of it being emotional and messy, and you know, I want to be objective, but objectively, I kind of have a hard time understanding what, you see, I understand the specific point you're trying to make, but when you then look at it holistically, you're kind of cutting off your nose to spite your own face, essentially. You're kind of shooting yourself in the foot in an attempt to draw your gun to shoot the other guy. You shot yourself first. You cheddar-bobbed yourself. So first off, let's go with, there's a former Attorney General of the partnership. We do have other stories to get to, but I can't just let it pass. I'll try not to necessarily stay too long at any one point. But there are a couple of observations with the current commentary on this whole issue. So one of the things is a lot of people are taking umbrage to the Prime Minister's remark that CARICOM member states can speak for themselves. As pointed out by one of the callers, is CARICOM really a political alliance? That caller would say no. And I would agree. I would agree. Now, this is the statement made. As such, we should not readily abandon our closest allies to appease those who would easily discard us. Instead, we should seek to strengthen our relationship with dependable allies and build on our global network of alliances to ensure we spread our eggs around diverse baskets. This is coming from former Attorney General Garvin Nicholas. I would just like to ask, what exactly does that mean? Because I'm just going to say this up front, and maybe some people, this might get me in trouble with some people, but at some point, I can't really care about that. If all you do is speak in buzzwords and don't actually go in specifics, it means nothing. It sounds like either a used car salesman or some board executive that's just trying to brown nose his way to another promotion. Sorry, maybe not brown, some corporate executive, you know, trying to be VP of distribution or whatever. So he has this flashy presentation, but the actual substance is relatively, is it there or not? I have no idea. You're selling people on dreams. right? Who are our closest allies that we're abandoning? CARICOM? Hey, isn't Guyana one of the members of CARICOM? Here's Guyana's take on this. Venezuelan cartels put region's peace at risk. It's funny how none of the critics, and listen, I'm not saying the government is right. Again, they bungle the messaging bad. If anybody wants to criticize the government for what the ambassador to CARICOM said, because he said regime change, he proposed aggressive action. And you're a third party, not just cheerleading aggressive action, but calling for aggressive action. That might be a little bit of a bridge too far, even for me. Because a lot of this is subjective, and you are speaking as though you know for certain this is the correct thing to do. That gives me pause. But the flip side is, notice how you could, like I said, you could criticize the government for that. You could criticize the government for their messy communication and the message of the ambassador to CARICOM being too aggressive and irresponsible. I actually think the Prime Minister's message is not as responsible. That's my take. But the flip side is, how many of the analysts and the political scientists and the international relations experts have considered all the factors? Because just about very few, if any of them, have spoken about Guyana. It's really easy when you're spending someone else's money, when you're putting someone else's land at risk, when it's not you that has saber rattling being done right on your doorstep. Because it is borderline hypocritical. How dare America saber rattle outside of Venezuelan waters? Was that Venezuela saber rattling right next to Guyana's borders? Don't say anything, because we need to keep the peace in the region. That makes you look like a coward. You're here to appease the bully, to the point where you don't want someone else to come in and either deal with or bully the bully. It's a hell of a time to start to have principles now. But let's go back to what the former Attorney General Garvin Nicholas has said. Notice, anyway, let me not go there. Who is the closest allies we're abandoning? CARICOM? We're not abandoning CARICOM. CARICOM could speak for itself. Yes, CARICOM has at times spoken with a unified message, but hasn't certain members of CARICOM already gone away from whatever that message is supposed to be? And notice again how we do not get strongly worded. We kind of get a message that CARICOM stands with Guyana, but there are already member states that displayed behavior that broke away from that long before, when the Essequibo region was the actual focus of regional peace issues. Notice how when the Essequibo region was going on, oh my gosh, the Caribbean is a zone of peace. Not all of these people spoke about condemning Venezuela's saber rattling. We didn't get strongly worded letters from the opposition or press conferences about Venezuelan saber rattling. We did get some, but it didn't seem to have the same amount of passion. So who are the closest allies, right? And then Garvin Nicholas then goes on to admit, that is not to say we can benefit from greater vigilance of the waters between South America and coast and ours. It is, however, important to remember the USA couldn't eliminate the Taliban in Afghanistan by bombing them, nor could the IDF, after killing 400,000 innocent Palestinians, destroy Hamas. Well, those are terrorist situations, Hamas, the Taliban. Are you comparing the Maduro regime to terrorists? Because narco-terrorism is not the same thing to religious extremism. Just say it. It's not. And this is where I say people want to take apples and compare origins one for one, and it's not exactly the same. It's not exactly the same. That was one of the mistakes with World War II. People kind of looked at World War I and wanted to compare it in many different aspects, how the war potentially would be conducted. Some people wanted to negotiate peace at all costs because we didn't want another war, not realizing that sometimes the other side isn't really on that peace thing. And the other side in this case could be both Venezuela and America. And again, I challenge people, if both of those nations are not going to back down, what is CARICOM supposed to do? Write a strongly worded letter to the United Nations? Do you think Europe will support that right now? When they're trying to get Trump to keep supporting Zelensky? I don't think so. So exactly who are the allies that are not going to abandon us? Because as one caller pointed out, if Venezuela decides to get froggy, which ally of ours that we shouldn't abandon is going to help us in that scenario? It's going to help Guyana in that scenario. So again, the kind of analysis here, it's idealistic. You know, it's what's supposed to be done on the surface. It's what the textbooks would probably ascribe in the classroom. This is how it should be. I mean, maybe not even in a university level classroom, maybe in a secondary school level classroom. But it seems very short-sighted, not because it's wrong. At the end of the day, these takes that I'm disagreeing with could be right, but rather it seems short-sighted because it's not considering everything. It's not accounting for everything. It's not trying to reason out everything. Regime change in Venezuela could be a disaster, but it would not be for the exact same reasons that Afghanistan was a disaster. Afghanistan is not the same as Iraq. The results are similar, but they're not the same. If your analysis is to just lump them together and you put that in an academic paper, I'm very certain you're not going to get any. All right. Of course, Venezuela is saying, how dare TNT interfere in Venezuelan affairs? We're not interfering in Venezuelan affairs. The Prime Minister is calling on America to deal with something that's interfering with our affairs. Whether or not that's America's actual goal and purpose remains to be seen. The Prime Minister is just supporting action against cartels because we are victims of transnational crime. So very much on the surface, this is not that much of a stretch because this is the other consideration. Again, I understand that America might be going for regime change. But if you want to play the diplomatic game, unless you want to make an enemy of America, the game says what they say they're doing technically is something that we should support, so we can't not support it. And if they then turn around and do something else, at that point in time, for those that have a little bit of sense and grace and smarts and communication skill, it doesn't take that much. You could then backtrack and say, I supported this, I didn't support that. I supported dealing with the cartels and interdicting drug smuggling and transnational crime. I didn't support going in and trying to take Maduro out. It's not that hard. It's just that it seems as though locally our communication skills are lacking. And I'll have a couple of examples of that. One example already is the fact that the government couldn't figure out their messaging on the issue in time before they got 3 conflicting messages. Right? I'm not gonna lie, that really, it's not that bad, but it does make you look that incompetent. I'm not gonna lie, I can't fault anybody for that. Now, former minister, ex-minister of Foreign Affairs, because he has to be a loyal member of a party that proved to him that they have no loyalty to him. Hell of a way to live, right? He is saying that the Prime Minister is undermining CARICOM solidarity. I would just like to point out, and I'm going to bring this up more than once, is the Bolivian Alliance for the Peoples of America part of CARICOM? Because they went off and made their own statement, as the Caribbean members of that organization have done in the past. Statements that don't seem to be in support of Guyana. Let's be clear. So who is undermining CARICOM? I mean, you were the Minister of Foreign Affairs at the time. Are you trying to tell me that that didn't happen? Is my interpretation wrong? If so, explain it to me, thereby accounting for a variable that your argument doesn't seem to account for when you're making a decisive statement. That is inferring conclusions that I find premature. CARICOM is sacrificed. Who sacrificed CARICOM? I would argue that when the Essequibo region came up, it was plain to me, because I had this thought, nobody had to tell me this. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm of the opinion the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, sacrificed CARICOM a long time ago. But if unity, right, is not having boundaries, not standing on principle, if unity is compromising, if unity is being allowed to be bullied about, what kind of unity is this? This is like one of those families where one family member abuses another family member, and then the older heads say, don't report it to the police. Let's just keep the peace. Let bygones be bygones. Why have to rock the boat for? Gaslighting, you're like, oh no, they didn't do anything bad to you, you know. So why you have to now kick up a fuss? Guyana, settle down. Oh, but no, they're not saying that because they can't, right? Because they know if they go that far, they will look bad. But essentially, that's, in my mind, that's the event. They'll say, no, we didn't say anything about Ghana. That's what you're saying. The stance you're taking now is saying, oh, Ralph Gonsalves did nothing wrong, and Alba does nothing wrong, when it supports Venezuela, and then indirectly supports Venezuela's claims on Essequibo, another CARICOM member. Who is sacrificing CARICOM? Tell me, please. And Iran is saying that the Prime Minister is reckless. Let me see if I can get a quote here. Imran is quoted as saying the Prime Minister's remarks are reckless and sinister. Sabotage our region's ability to form a consensus and craft a unified position. Again, will it really be unified? Because when the Essequibo matter happened, I'm going to be honest, that looked like a half-baked CARICOM statement. That didn't look unified at all. That looked shaky at best. If you want to go through the motions and call that true unity, I mean, let's put it this way. If you want to say the People's National Movement is unified, yeah, it's unified to the same degree, I guess, to the same extent. Meanwhile, I do wonder where the talking points, you know, has the PNM like met and drawn a consensus on how they're going to deal with the situation? Because Dr. Rowley is using similar language. He calls the Prime Minister having reckless foreign policy. It's very interesting how vocal Dr. Rowley is being while retired. And this is one of the people who I really just wish he would stay in retirement. Because this is the best part. I love this. I love this. Yes, we drowning in blood. This is a quote from Dr. Keith Rowley, retired member of the PNM, former Prime Minister. Yes, we drowning in blood. Yes, the murder figures are obscene, but no amount of U.S. warships parked in international waters. Notice, he's smart. He is acknowledging the fact that the U.S. warships are parked in international waters. So in what world could we tell the United States, how dare you park in international waters? I would like someone tell me what we're supposed to do to prevent that. Will no amount of U.S. warships parked in international waters will fix corrupt police, court backlogs, or communities abandoned by the state. Linking our domestic collapse of drug cartels abroad is lazy politics. We have a domestic collapse. It's funny how we didn't have a domestic collapse 4 months ago. Somehow after an election, I mean, please define domestic collapse to me. Is domestic collapse, well, the PNM lost, therefore, obviously, there was a domestic collapse. it started from on April the 28th, there was a domestic collapse. Because what the statement is basically indirectly admitting, because you don't reach this point in 4 months if you were fine. If you're in a good place, you don't reach this point where you could say, we're drowning in blood, the murder figures are obscene, there's corrupt police, court backlogs, and communities abandoned by the state. You don't reach this point in 4 months from a good spot. So you're indirectly admitting that under your tenure, we were drowning in blood. The mega figures got obscene. There were communities abandoned by the state. There was a domestic collapse. Maybe if we were a year and a half, 2 years in, and you said domestic collapse, you could sell us on the UNC caused a domestic collapse. You can't sell me that the UNC caused a domestic collapse so soon. There's a reason why you lost. There's a reason why there's a narrative that you knew you were going to lose for that very reason. So you opted out because you didn't want to take that butt whooping. You didn't want to have directly attributed to your legacy the election record because you had a winning record. Better to go out on top. This is a narrative. I don't know if it's true, but you're playing into the narrative. You're lending credence to the narrative. Your actions are suggesting that you didn't really want to retire. And now here you're admitting, oh no, we had a domestic collapse. I don't understand. In what world do you think that you could utilize our current domestic struggles in a debate only 4 months out, maybe 5 from an election? It was in April. Yes, I understand, collapses could happen quickly, but not this quickly. They didn't do anything for us to collapse that quickly, and a significant amount of how they were running the country was based on the last PNM budget. Why did you think this is reasonable? And there's a part of me, I'm not mad because of the actual truth, you know. I'm mad, well, mad is not the correct word. I'm disappointed that Dr. Keith Rowley thought this was a good angle to take in the discussion. How? Why? When? He goes on. That isn't hedging. That's planting a flag. That is to say, you're not hedging your bets supporting America, right? It seems as though the PNM administration, I wonder if that's basically admitting, oh, we hedged our bets. We didn't really support anybody. Hey, you know what happened when the bat didn't want to support anybody between the animals and the birds? They both rejected him, and he became a pariah in that little fable. But going on, the quote, Venezuela will read it as a betrayal. Guyana will see it as a blank check. I'm sorry, when did we join the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America? When did that happen? Do we have an alliance with Venezuela I am not aware of? Did you form a backroom alliance, an informal alliance? Is that why you and Stuart Young were so confident over the Dragon deal? Nothing is wrong with the Dragon deal. Nothing's going to happen to the Dragon deal. Dragon deal. Is that why you were ignoring people when people said, hey, the issue with the Dragon deal is not about Venezuela's agreement, it's about America. Unless you want to risk getting sanctioned, unless you want to risk being a pariah. And people will then go on, yes, I understand. There's a whole other debate about BRICS and how, if that's moral or not. That's not the point. The point is, let's stay in the practical realm of reality. That's what would have happened. And let's not forget where we import most of our food from. And it's not that simple to say, oh, we'll import all of our food from Europe, all our food from Africa. It's not that simple to just switch distribution channels wholesale across the board and not expect a lot of growing pains, to say the least, in the transition. But how Venezuela being betrayed? When were we in an alliance with Venezuela? Guyana will have a blank check? A blank check for what? Guyana is saber-rattling. Guyana is looking to invade Venezuela. What is Guyana's blank check over? Could Dr. Emery Brown please explain to me exactly what is Venezuela's expectations with regards to our political friendship? Do we have an alliance with them? Is Guyana an aggressor in this situation? Maybe Dr. Brown could unpack it for me. Just by the way, I am wondering, Because I always said, I think Penelope Beckles has been sidelined or undermined for a lot of her tenure as opposition leader. I'm just going to ask this question out there. It could be very wrong. But could anyone find out for me if Dr. Keith Rowley has actually retired or if he's continuing being the unofficial leader of the PNM? And I could actually see why, to some extent, it might even be necessary, because the whole thing might collapse without him, because he did not necessarily do a good enough job to ensure that his succession will be smooth. And now we have this situation that we have. So Guyana will have a blank check. We can't betray Venezuela. Dr. Brown, were we siding with Venezuela over Essequibo? Just let me know. You would say, oh, this is not the same thing. Well, to some extent, while it's not exactly the same thing, these are connected issues. You can't take these issues outside of a vacuum. Oh, by the way, we have a domestic collapse because the murder rate is obscene. Are you saying that you prioritize your alliance with Maduro? Sorry, let me not say your alliance, because I'm asking, do you have an alliance with Maduro? Is there some informal alliance with Maduro? Are you saying that you prioritize your relationship with Maduro over our transnational crime influence in the country? That is to say, you just didn't bother to deal with it. Because I think at some point, somebody in the opposition, it could have been the opposition leader, it could have been Stuart Young, it could have been Imre Bound, it could have been Dr. Keith Rowley, somebody in the opposition. Because at this point, Dr. Keith Rowley is not that retired, right? Pointed out how the partnership canceled the OPV vessels. Well, I could say that. I could say that. You can't say that. You know why? Because even if we had the OPV vessels, chances are they would have been like the rest of the Coast Guard, stuck in port without gas, without maintenance in order to make them operational, ineffective, or they'll get sick and they won't be able to go out to sea. For some reason, they just won't go out to patrol, apparently, allegedly, maybe. Because our maritime borders are porous. I don't think the OPVs that Mr. Manning ordered would have made a difference in the previous 10 years. It's not as though you used the ships that you had and they were insufficient. You didn't use the ships that you had. You couldn't use the ships that you had. So I could say the partnership canceled the OPVs, and I wondered if that was a bad thing. And I think that might have been a bad thing. You can't say that because history implies that it wouldn't have mattered. Not at all, not one bit. So here you come now, siding. You have made a positive statement for Venezuela and a negative one for Guyana. And I need to know, where not just CARICOM sacrificed for our interests in your Dragon deal, but hey, let's CARICOM unity. No, we use CARICOM to try to sugarcoat our position by hedging our bets. But were the people of Trinidad and Tobago to some extent sacrificed to try to get your Dragon deal? Was there any calculation of acceptable losses? People are dying, but we need a Dragon deal. And when the economy improves, then we could improve things somehow magically. Because we assume that when the economy improves, somehow we'll be able to regain control of this runaway train known as crime in Trinidad and Tobago. That's the implications of what the PNM is saying, of what Dr. Keith Rowley is saying. We have a domestic collapse. We have a crime problem. It's a transnational crime problem. The national security apparatus knew Trinidad and Tobago was in the country since 2018. It's funny how nothing has been done about it. Nothing. Nothing. By the way, to show you how there's no cohesion, the Venezuelan, who is it, boy? Venezuelan Justice Minister pointed out about the Venezuelan baby that was killed by the Coast Guard. That was during the PNM, buddy. That wasn't during this administration. So if you wanna blame this administration, you can't really. I don't know if there was a recent incident that I'm not aware of, but I'm just saying. This whole thing. Like, okay, let's take the, good day, Guyana says Escobar region is there, so too Venezuela. The dispute for years is being adjudicated. Thus, it's neither Guyana's or Venezuela's land legally, although both claims it's theirs. Unlike you, I take no side until the tribunal rules. Here's the thing. To some extent, you need to understand something. International law is not law like domestic law. International law doesn't equate the same way, doesn't hit the same way. That's point number one. Border disputes, I don't think is a situation where it's nobody's until the tribunal speaks. Because ultimately speaking, the tribunal only has authority if both sides agree. If one side does not agree with the tribunal's findings, there's no legal recourse. You can't fine the person, you can't imprison Venezuela for contempt of court. That's point number one. Point number two, to be fair, you are giving consideration on the situation. I am giving consideration on the situation. My point is not that this is the be-all and end-all, and because of that I am right. My point is that there are people opening their mouths and they are speaking on only what is convenient for them to say in order to try to win the debate, and they're trying to ignore the rest, seemingly. So, I mean, as far as I'm aware, the way how border disputes and territories and things like that goes, this is not two families fighting over inheritance and the estate is stuck in escrow or whatever. This is not that. It's not. International law is not that. If Venezuela had possession of it, right now, I would say it's Venezuela's. On that line of thinking. I might want to make the argument that I believe it should belong to Guyana. To some extent, we kind of need to understand sovereign ownership of territory in this modern sensibilities is actually very recent. This is not how nations were necessarily looked at for hundreds and thousands of years. Yes, you own territory. You own the territory that you could defend. If you couldn't defend it, guess what? You don't own it no more. This whole international court thing, international tribunals, this is all new stuff. This is not natural for human society. Is it better? Yes, it's better, because hopefully it will lead to a resolution for peace. But it is what it is. Regardless of who owns it, though, and this is the other point, regardless of who owns it, Venezuela is not saying, let's take it to arbitration. And from what I understand, I'm not sure, but they themselves ignore whatever they lose. At whatever point that they lose, they don't take it on. I don't know if they've lost every ruling so far, but I think at whatever point they lost, they just ignore it. What does that imply to you? So, but more importantly, forget about that. That is secondary. The fact is, there is a situation where Venezuela feels justified in utilizing threats of military force. It's fine if you have a principle to say we are a region of peace. We do not want America to light a fire, to strike the match in the tinderbox. But where is the same level of energy for the potential tinderbox in Essequibo? Regardless of who owns it and what the status is, the status don't matter. The fact is they were saber-rattling. I'm not seeing the same level of commitment to CARICOM in that matter. It's very funny how the commitment to CARICOM, the issue where we want to see the solidarity behind CARICOM the most is in a matter where one country is saying we want to go after another country that isn't in CARICOM. But when it's a matter of a CARICOM member being threatened, I mean, I guess, is it because Guyana and the PNM didn't really, if and only and the PNM didn't really see eye to eye? Is that the situation? Because I get it, you know, if you feel slighted. But again, I also do have to ask, at what point is one of the things being considered, one of the things being defended, but not spoken about, indirectly defended, utilizing CARICOM as a cover, is the transnational criminals. The PNM has to be very careful that they themselves do not craft around themselves a narrative that not only did we potentially support, due to our inactivity, due to our deference to any sort of agreement or relationship with the Venezuelan government, we allowed certain transnational crime to happen, but also that if this is a situation where, let's just assume the Americans want to go after drug cartels, that the interests of the drug cartels tied to whatever interests here, tied to whatever financial interests that supports the PNM, means the PNM have to speak against it. Be careful you don't craft that narrative for yourself, because you can't speak about CARICOM unity and then have your retired former political leader essentially throw Guyana under the bus. Let's take this comment, because believe it or not, I do want to push back against this comment a little bit. This comment is praising me, and I appreciate the support. I would caution though, and I said this yesterday, as much as I think I am right and I appreciate the support, I am speaking from my perspective based on whatever biases I have, some which I might identify, some which I might not identify, right? Which is why ultimately, and I do think that the commentator, I do think she's agreeing with me because she herself has thought it through herself and it's not just blindly following me. But this is why I said what I said yesterday. I need everybody in this situation to kind of understand, right? If you want to speak about this issue, you have to think it through for yourself. You have to determine what lines you don't want to cross, what principles you want to stand on, right? With all of the comments from this commentator, I don't think she's guilty of just blindly following a narrative. But too many people are blindly following a narrative. Even including a lot of the analysts who, again, they're not doing what, not to toot my own horn, but what the comment says, a well-rounded analysis, thoughtful questioning. Because again, when I see obvious things that the government doing wrong in this situation, I have pointed it out. But I generally agree with the Prime Minister as long as it's not outright invasion, regime change. Let me just make that point clear. I don't want to see America invade Venezuela. Invading Venezuela and taking out Maduro, those are not the same things. Do I want to see America take out Maduro? That's very, very questionable. That's very, very uncertain if that will work. It's not uncertain that it won't work. But that, I don't know if I want to take that risk. America going after drug cartels, the forces they deployed is primed to do it. Some of it, it seems like it's more muscle than needed to go after drug cartels. That's because if they believe the Venezuelan government is supporting them, then they need to defend themselves while they go after drug cartels. And then it might escalate things further. But I appreciate the support. I appreciate the comments. But I need people to then go a step further and not just say, oh, well, you know, she supported me because she agreed or whatever. All right, that's fine, but why did she agree? She agreed because, in her opinion, it's well-rounded. Call out whoever for whatever. Don't be biased, or at least try, for any one side. Because I think one of the things that a debate like this is, the UNC people are going to be like, everything the UNC did was right. Don't talk about Ralph Maharaj. He did nothing wrong. Don't talk about Sobers. He did nothing wrong. Everything that PNM did is wrong, and vice versa. All the PNM people will be like, everything UNC did is wrong. Everything that the PNM did is right. Dr. Rowley's right. We have a domestic collapse. Well, if we have a domestic collapse, whose fault is that? This is making me think that we really are being played. We really are being played now. We are being taken for fools. The question is, I think the opposition, some people in the opposition are taking us for fools. To what extent is the UNC also taking us for fools? I don't know. I don't know. But the way how the political environment is, two sides of the same coin, right? Different sides of the same coin. I don't know. There's another situation where the current administration, that whole FCB thing, I don't have time to speak about it today, that's just looking sad. But let's take a break. When we come back, hopefully we'll have the ASP with us. Stay tuned to talk about our WSN. We'll be right back after this.
Welcome to ASTI, Advanced Solutions Technical Institute. We offer hands-on training in drone technology, fiber optics, hybrid, security, business support, and more. Our programs are built to equip you with real-world skills for today's evolving industries. Get certified, get hired, and take your career to the next level with ASTI. Call 778-2135 or email info@astitnt.com. ASTI, where learning meets opportunity.
KDM Health Limited says, test yourself for STDs in the privacy of your own home. Our self-help test kits for all STDs are available at our wholesale office in Chaguanas. Call 283-1423, visit our website at www.kdmhealtht.com or email us at kdmhealthlimited@gmail.com to place your orders. Available at all health institutions and pharmacies. Contact us for a free list of products and prices.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
I'm back here. I'm talking about the WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Smith, joined by our TTPS Media Ambassador, Acting SP Christopher Arun. Sorry, I was just, this whole thing with the commentary on the Venezuela-US thing, I just find interesting on what it's doing with regards to domestic messaging. I'm sure a lot of people are not necessarily reading the things that I'm reading. But one of the unfortunate human psychological natures that we all suffer from is when we think that there's a crisis, we kind of have blinders for other things going on. And ironically, we were in a period where the murder rate was looking very well. But there seems to be a lot of stories about extreme violence or bad violence. They're just things that like, oh my gosh, how could this happen? Maybe they're anecdotal. And more importantly, there are other crimes besides murders that continue to happen unabated. And one of the things that we know is happening, but we're in a very weird society, where a society that does not trust online banking, we had this observation of here, somehow is very gullible to online scams. Somehow, right? We don't trust the banks, but we trust the Nigerian prince for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why, especially when half of the population are not African descent. So we don't even have that, you know, that kind of pseudo-blood connection to say, hey, maybe I'll trust you. And this is something now that's, again, on the TTPS radar, online fraud.
Well, good day to you, Sean, your staff, and your viewers. It's funny, there are different levels with the Nigerian print scam. Because we actually have, we're actually monitoring scams in Trinidad where there are persons of African descent from Africa itself. Not necessarily Nigerians, but are involved in these scams. So as I said, it's funny on different levels. Although, simply put, we're here today to talk about online scams and fraud just to put persons on the guard against such activities. So what we're seeing is a trend, and it's trending now, just like the Facebook marketplace.
Right.
You see where people go on and purchase and transact business and find themselves being victims of crime. We see this trending as well, continues to trend. It's not a new phenomenon. And with the elderly, with the aging population we have in Trinidad, who seem to not want to go down the road of, as you say, the cashless society, seem to be the most vulnerable when it comes to online scams.
I don't know if you could explain that to me. Why is it they feel safe dealing with their money? Right. Potentially, some of these scammers will be foreigners, some won't be. Right. But the point is, I don't trust the bank, right, who is technically allowed by the police and the state and much of society to operate unfettered. Correct. But I will trust a random stranger who just with an email.
Right. So how scams like online scams work? Because recently we had a victim come out in the public domain and speak about his interaction with a scammer. So we had him receive, it was a male person that received email from his bank. And when he went into the bank, into the link, so what you call a link, so everybody knows you go into your emails or you go into your website, and you might see a message urging you to put in your credentials to access your online banking.
Right.
And when you try to do that, it gives you another link. So what the link does, the link takes you to another platform that steals your credentials.
Although this is a situation where someone is engaged in online banking.
Yes. Okay. But what was important to note is that when he clicked on the link took him to a platform that asked him for his email information.
Right.
Right. The link that he clicked on was an HTTPS protocol. So what the HTTPS protocol is, it's a way to verify that this is a really legitimate website.
Right.
So it's not just a fake website. It used the correct protocol to catch his information. So this is why he trusted the source.
Yeah.
So if you try to go on YouTube, you would generally have to go on the World Wide Web, www. You would see an HTTPS/// protocol come in, so you know you are legitimately on YouTube. However, what the scammers do is that they create a similar YouTube or Facebook account and to try and capture. So this is called phishing. And phishing is targeted, and it's basically a shot in the dark where it targets a group of people. So it doesn't necessarily target you, as opposed to other types of phishing. So this general phishing, it targets everybody, so it sends out mass emails.
It's like a wide net.
Right, and then it captures the most vulnerable.
And that's the thing. So yes, a lot of fake websites, if it's like a fake Republic Bank site, it might have some janky protocol, but they'll figure out a way to have what looks like an official Republic Bank web address.
Yes, so you look carefully at the website that you're taken to, and just as a general rule, and banks have asked and warned people to be careful when putting in your credentials. So what you could do is that the banks indicate that they would never ask you for personal information, your PIN numbers, your passwords, and whatnot. So if you were to receive an email urging you to quickly or in a short space of time, maybe 24 hours or less, to change your password, that is one, let's say that's one scam. You could call your bank. So there are hotlines you could call. So like I bank with a particular bank, so I know that hotline number. Other banks have different hotline numbers. You contact the bank and say, listen, I just received an email asking me to change my password and whatnot. And this would indicate that, and the bank would indicate if it's a proper platform, if it's legitimate or what.
Yeah. That's the thing, like utilizing emails to identify yourself, that is technically normal. There are situations where they might need you to log in to do something, so depending on the wording. But this is one of the things that I found interesting that I wanted to bring up. This is tangential. I was on my phone and there was an ad. Right? This ad looked like a Newsday article. It looked like a news article.
So they create pages and websites to mimic that of legitimate websites.
So, and it looked like a legit article. You have to read and understand it was an ad, right?
Yeah.
And if someone could do it as an ad, and I decided to report the ad to Facebook because I'm like, this is a little bit ridiculous now, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if Newsday is doing this ad, but it's like an ad for some kind of like Bitcoin kind of thing. It wasn't Bitcoin itself, but something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like this is ridiculous, right?
Right.
But then, of course, now if an ad could reach this point, and I think it was AI generated. I'm not sure, right? Then, and that's the other thing with AI to get the look, I assume for the criminal element. Now you don't need a web developer.
No.
Or somebody like that to design the site, and it could mean that now you might see you might be bombarded with a lot of scams where it might look the look on the screen might be more legit.
Yeah. So you have that. For instance, you might log into Facebook, and you notice that, and if you don't check properly, the Facebook would be absent of an O. So you have Facebook,
right?
Or you have YouTube without the E. So you have to look for these little errors, and then it would ask you, well, put in your email credentials. And then you go to a link and you put in your email credentials and it steals that information. And what we are seeing now is that the scammers use this information to gain access to your bank accounts and whatnot, and even plant spyware on your laptop or your device and eventually steal it from you. So that's why we're asking persons to be very careful with online trades, online banking, their devices and whatnot. Be very careful at the emails. So for instance, so I had at that point in time I had 3 credit cards, but I would only utilize the smallest valued credit card for online purchases, as advised by the bank though.
Yeah.
And that's one avenue persons could take to minimize risk in utilizing online purchases and whatnot. So you have other scams, just the online ones, but you have the callers. Recently, my colleague and I were in my office, and he received a call. I think he applied for his UK visa, and he received a call from, well, he had the person on loudspeaker, so this was somebody speaking proper English with an English accent and whatnot from England. And he answered many questions like, said that was very simple, and he's like, that was a scammer. So he said it's a scammer. He said they wouldn't call you to ask you all this information like that, and he recognized it was a scammer. So you have the calls, you have the WhatsApp, you have the online, you have the emails and whatnot. So it's different types of non-interface or face-to-face interactions that persons use to scam, especially elderly persons in society.
So, right, and that's the thing. Some of them might seem very obvious.
Obvious.
Some of them not so obvious.
It's a shot in the dark.
But it's a wide net, right?
So it's a wide net. So, and the thing is, it's never zero. So they send out this mass email, or they send out this, they create these websites, and they create these pages, and people go on it. And they generally don't be successful with everybody, or a great majority of persons. But the small percentage they are successful with are the profitable ones for them.
And some of these scammers are local, correct? Because
correct, yeah.
I remember the Jamaican movie Sprinter, right? One of the side plots was there was a character who basically had a little gang, and he was doing phone scamming.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the thing, it's not just some person in Africa, it could be someone in Caribbean, it could be someone in Trinidad and Tobago.
It could be somebody in the States as well.
Somebody in the States,
yeah,
right.
It's all over the world, that they, and it's apparently successful to some extent. And they utilize this avenue to steal persons' information.
Yeah, because there's something, when a local hears an American voice and they want to say that they're an official from X, Y, and Z, like it seems legit, right? Not realizing, hey, these scams, it's not someone with broken English from Africa or India or China. It could be, again, someone from North America.
It could be even as simple as somebody calling to assist you with an issue you have on a page or email or whatnot. And you call tech service, and they direct you, and it's probably a scam on the other line. So you have to also make sure.
But a lot of it now, you could be scammed on the phone.
Yeah.
But a lot of the online stuff, like, it's not the be all and end all, right? So if you just avoid this, doesn't mean that you can't get targeted with something else or hit with something else. But a lot of it seems to come from emails. Like email seems to be like the greatest minefield be wary of anything that sends you any link to click on it.
Right, and especially to put in your credentials. Anything to put in your credentials.
Yes.
So it's often...
when you say credentials, to be...
Oh, your username and password.
Your password.
Because what happens, especially with the elderly persons, they tend to use the same password across the board, across devices.
Yes.
So for emails, for YouTube, for Netflix, for
So once
whatever.
they get it once, they could then, you enter your Netflix password, and then they have your
and
password to log
sometimes it's
into
the
your
same
account.
password for your banking information.
Yes, for your banking information.
And your online information. And you try to make it simple, you try to make it easy on yourself. And you try to keep one password.
That's the other thing. The banks, there's always certain information that the company will never ask of you. Not outside of a very specific way. So an online transaction, certain credit card information, they won't just ask it of you willy-nilly. Your PIN number, they don't need that for certain online transactions or any online transactions, I believe. Your bank PIN number,
no, they would
for
never,
your links. The bank will never ask for your PIN number for your links.
But they do try that, and they do get
But that's my point.
Even if it's 1%.
If your email says we need your PIN number, the bank will never ask for that. If there's anything with your PIN number, what will the bank do? They will have you come in to change your PIN, right? A lot of websites, they don't ask you for the password to fix it. What they will do is they'll send you a link to change your password. Right. Of course, the scams might eventually get onto that. Yeah. But then
most people don't accept and interact with the scammers.
Things,
But it's as opposed to whaling, where scammers target CEOs and persons with a lot of money in society. So they have the general net, as we spoke about, and then you have targeted avenues or targeted issues that they use for persons with a lot of money. So they call it whaling. So you have phishing with like spear phishing and whatnot, and it target particular persons and it's a general net and whatnot. But with whaling, it targets persons with a lot of money.
Right. So you have whaling, people with a lot of money. I guess it will be like a lot of different attempts to scam you. Yeah. So even if you hey, look, this is a scam, I ignore it. There might be another one the same day next week. Yeah. If it doesn't work, they'll continue going.
Right.
But the spear phishing I find interesting. That's kind of similar in the sense of it might not be whaling, might not be going after CEO, but you're targeting somebody, I assume, with that?
Yes, using a particular website and that they may tend to use.
And the thing, for people to understand, you don't have to necessarily be rich for you to be a target.
No, as I said, they're successful at, even if they're 1% successful, they are successful. So it's never zero.
Because that's the thing, if they get 5,000 from you, 5,000 from me, and that might be what, one day's
work,
or less, right? Because they're, to some extent, also reusing tools that they...
You understand? It's like millions, hundreds of thousands of persons.
That they are...
And 1% who give in or
even $500.
Yeah, and it multiplies. So they find it profitable.
But it could get worse though. If you go too far, if you're too liberal.
Yeah, we've had reports where persons have lost a lot of money in the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, and they've had to work with the bank. In some cases, they've never been reimbursed for their loss. I don't know if they have insurance. I don't know, but nonetheless, you have to work with the bank. So we tend to advise persons to work with fraud squad as well, to assist them with these issues.
And of course, if the scammer is abroad, well, the TPS can't go abroad.
But there are protocols in place to work with websites and companies like Google and Facebook and whatnot.
What is the likelihood of you getting your money back from an international online scam?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to say right.
But it's just one of those things where you have to try and be vigilant, because rectifying it after the fact is extremely difficult.
It's very, sometimes sometimes I've known cases where persons never got back their money.
Yeah. And this is the other thing, it's pensioners.
It's pensioners, the elderly persons.
So the money that they don't get back.
Yeah. So as much as we're driving towards the cashless society, we have to be very careful with our transactions online and off, or not in-person transactions.
To what extent would you advise the children of the elderly, or maybe to be more involved in their parents' financial situation, and for the parents to allow their children, because this is one of those catch-22 things. There's a catch to that. where you have some children who exploit their own parents now.
Yeah, you have that. We see that. We see, and then we see persons who gain the trust of the elderly to try and get the information of the
right.
Yeah.
They have those. Did we speak
and
about
as
that?
opposed, yeah, we did.
Yes.
We spoke about that because there was cases, we were monitoring a case where this person was going around and actually looking for elderly persons in society to gain access to their homes and to take it over and to sign it over to them. We spoke about this before.
This is locally, right?
Yeah, locally.
Because it sounds like, again,
no.
I know we spoke about it, but it still sounds like something you see like in San Francisco or Chicago, New York. Not like, it's some real crazy la and as much as we say Trinidad is not a real place, they have other places that seem more surreal than us, but this is locally.
And what you have these elderly persons in society, we've actually seen this, where they don't trust their own children. But they don't trust their own relatives, but they trust a stranger. And they give the stranger the information. It's very sad to see that. And then you also have the case on the flip side where the relatives take advantage of the elderly or the elderly relatives, and they take advantage of the information they can acquire from them.
As a child, if I think my parent is potentially falling for an online scam and I'm in time, or there's a situation where someone is inserting themselves in their life, can I go to the police and try to have the police intervene?
You can. It's an issue of legality. Can the police investigate somebody who's trying to be a friend?
Right. Yeah, what's the crime until...
Yeah, what's the crime? Do they have the time to look into it? Most times, community policing does do a welfare check. They do a welfare check. Most times, they may have already gained the what we call the trust of the elderly person. So they won't report them. They won't find anything suspicious and whatnot. So it's a very difficult investigation to conduct in that sense, in that context.
Is it almost as though it seems like, because I actually kind of understand slightly why an elderly person might do this.
Yeah.
Because I know, like, in older generations, fighting for inheritance and all that thing was an issue, right? And then, of course, ironically, while that was going on, we lament the fact that now we don't have the village, but the village was there, the community used to protect you then. So now it's almost like, I don't know if we need to understand. First of all, I do think fighting for inheritance is not quite the same, right? In part because inheritance is not quite the same, but also the community is not quite the same. So I do find this interesting that a lot of the elderly people are kind of caught not realizing that, hey, it's not like what it used to. And I hate this. I don't know if it's that you just trust nobody, or rather, ironically, you could trust your family a little bit more now, and you have to trust random people in the community potentially. Or that's the other thing. To some extent, can't some of these interlopers, for lack of a better word, can't there be people who you would have sworn you knew long time, but they still, despite the fact that, hey, we were friends, we put them up back in the day, but they might still come back and scam you, similar to how you might be afraid your family looking to scam you?
Yeah, exactly. That does happen. It does happen. And you might have cases like blood deed, like we spoke about, where persons pretend to have known you for a long period of time and you've left inheritance for them and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, but what I would advise members of the public, especially elderly to do, is become or educate yourself on online transactions a lot more, so that you could trust yourself in these transactions. And where you cannot understand, I mean, we have YouTube, we have videos, we have online tutorials that will assist you in learning how to better yourself and educate yourself with online and non-face-to-face interactions.
This is TTPS.
Well, we don't have any.
Okay, no, so this will be just, I think the thing is, if you go for tutorials online, you have to be careful because they'll speak to different jurisdictions, so you'll have different processes and laws.
But it gives you a general idea of what to look for.
Especially for certain things online would be universal because of it's all on the internet, right?
Correct.
It's international, certain things. Would you advise older people who, yes, you might be aware of the banks, and it's questionable the degree of proficiency and duty of care that they will give with financial advisors, right?
Yeah.
Because to some extent, someone working for the bank, you know, to what extent will they be able to give you truly holistic, you know, financial advice? But to kind of get someone to kind of generally help you kind of navigate this, because I think part of the problem is, again, who to trust, right?
Right.
So then whose advice
Well,
to take?
you could trust yourself especially, and one of the things that they advise, the banks advise, is that you monitor your own accounts online often. So you make purchases during the day, and what you could do is you go back and you double check your account online and make sure that these purchases legitimately were done. I often do it at the end of the day. I hardly take a receipt from an ATM or from a transaction, point of sale transaction, for the unnecessary use of paper and whatnot. But I do go back. I have online banking, and I would go into the online banking at the end of the day to make sure, oh yeah, I legitimately purchased this purchase. I remember buying a cup of coffee for $15, and I took the receipt and I threw it in my van. And at the end of the day, I was at a pan festival, and it became boring at that point in time. I was like, I went online and I started to look at my account, and I realized that they had charged me $115 for the same cup of coffee. So
At the festival?
No.
Oh, early in the day?
Yeah, early in the day.
Yeah.
So I recognized that. So to monitor my spending, I would often check online. So, you know, check your purchases, check your transactions online as often as possible. And the banks would also advise that you change your password as often as possible. Yeah.
I think part of it too is because there's the flip side to all of this, right? The people who don't want to go cashless, the problem is we've seen situations and they're still happening. So alongside the online fraud and the banking fraud and the phishing scams and et cetera, there's also the ye old reliable, find a target withdrawing money in the bank, follow them to their car, see where they go, and then rob them somewhere, right?
So it's everything on you at the same time. So you always have to be on the lookout.
Right, because like this is one of the things, like in anything.
And crime evolves.
Crime evolves.
Yeah.
So if you say, I'm going to go cashless so they can't rob my cash, they'll target your electronic cash.
Yeah.
If you say, I don't trust online banking and links and going into the bank, I'll have all my cash on me, they'll do home invasions. If you say, well, I'll withdraw cash and I'll just have the money in the bank but not do online transactions and the like, then they'll attack you when you take out the cash.
Yeah.
They will always try and find you, so you can't just be lazy and say, well, I'll just do this and
then you have the same device you use, and they plant spyware and malware and whatnot into it.
It's on your phone.
On any device, and to steal it.
Especially if you open up an email.
Especially if you open
on your phone, on your tablet.
Or websites that you don't trust. Yeah.
That's a whole like, I guess the one universal thing we could say is, be very careful with emails. Be very, very, very careful with emails. If you have experience, you would generally, but not guaranteed, be able to tell an official email from an unofficial one. So like, I know, okay, this Caribbean Airlines email is legit. Why? Because I just purchased a ticket. So I'm expecting certain emails. And they would say no reply. So I don't even have to interact with them anyway. I just have to read it. Right? It's not asking me for anything. It's not saying, oh, there was a problem when you're processing, please, blah, 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 blah. No, at that point, I'll probably like call, and I'm a little bit old-fashioned.
Yeah.
My mom is more online with things than I am, right? For that reason, but I'm still not going to walk around with $10,000 in cash like some crazy people, right? But just be very wary with emails, right? If nothing else, be very skeptical about every email. And if any institution sends you an email that's critical, call them. Don't click on the link. Yeah. Don't put in your password and your username and your date of birth and your secret question answer and your credit card number and all that. Don't do that. And even if you think it's benign, I just put in my email, then that email will potentially become a target for random automated phishing expeditions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, disguised as whatever. All right. Should we take a break, guys? Or should we just... Yeah, let's take a break. When we come back, I have a comment to get to in the previous topic. And we'll open the phone lines. I understand. I know some people might not care for the U.S.-Venezuela topic. But the ESP is here, so if you have any situations with that, you could call them and ask him any questions. But that topic, unfortunately, hey, it actually matters domestically. And I won't rehash everything that I said. And I just couldn't let it pass. So more on that, maybe. Stay tuned.
Low energy? Heart concerns? Migraines slowing you down? It's time to take control of your health. Join Wellness Unlocked, the series that brings expert advice and real solutions for a healthier you. In our latest episode, learn how Jameson CoQ10 can help support heart health, boost energy, and even reduce migraines. Get the science, the stories, and the steps to power up your health with CoQ10. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and start your wellness journey today.
KDM Health Limited says, test yourself for STDs in the privacy of your own home. Our self-help test kits for all STDs are available at our wholesale office in Chaguanas. Call 283-1423. Visit our website at www.kdmhealtht.com. or email us at kdmhealthlimited@gmail.com to place your orders. Available at all health institutions and pharmacies. Contact us for a free list of products and prices.
Advanced Solutions Technical Institute isn't just about courses, it's about creating futures. We serve every learner, from the new graduate to the seasoned professional, with engaging, supportive staff and tailored learning plans. Study in the way that works for you and gain skills in business, security, finance, telecoms, fiber optics, and beyond. ASTI, training tomorrow's leaders today.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
And we're back here and talking about the WSND Content Capital. We do have a comment going back, and this is why I brought up the Venezuelan US situation again. So let's take the comment as we're here. I look at the bigger picture, how to position Trinidad if war breaks out. As the US has said, it's not only about the cartels, but overthrowing the government of Venezuela. Given our location, this is my major concern, the security of our citizens. Not about the TOS and twos and fro's between PNM and UNC, which is usually petty. That's fair. I'm not too sure if the government said, the US government said outright they're going to overthrow Venezuela. That's not an unreasonable consideration that that might be their unstated goal, right? However, and this is the key point, the forces that they sent are nowhere near enough to overthrow the government. You could go after Maduro. So now you have to question, is Maduro like Saddam Hussein? Is he such a dictator that literally, if you just remove him, the thing will collapse? Usually the answer to that question in very few cases is no, right? Because look, when Stalin was gone, somebody took it over. When Mao was gone, somebody took it over, right? Nazi Germany was a different kettle of fish, right? But to say you're going to overthrow, this is why I said what I said yesterday. for the U.S. to overthrow the Venezuelan government, they would need to invade. And they would need to invade with a force significantly, like multiplicatively larger than the 1 Marine battalion on the 1 Marine Expeditionary Unit that's on the 1 amphibious ready group in international waters. Let's not forget, everybody jumping like if America invade Venezuela already. They're in international waters. This is things that countries have done for like the last, I don't know, since the age of the dreadnought, right? I think the first President Roosevelt did a whole sailing around the globe just to showcase American power. And the UK's Navy and however all the times that they would just plant a warship off of somebody's coast. Same thing with the Soviet Navy back when they had a proper Navy. Most of their ships tooled down. Anyway, for America to invade, they need to mobilize a lot more troops. The obvious troops they would mobilize, depending on region, right? And how quickly they want to do things, if they want to try and do things fast, if they're going to be slow. Of course, there's the larger Marine forces, the Marine divisions. That would take a lot more ships to bring in. Then there's also basically the 18th Airborne Corps. That includes, as I said yesterday, 82nd Airborne, 101st Air Assault, 10th Mountain Light. Those units could be transported by air. You can't just transport every and anything by air. You can't transport a tank division by air. You could get like 1 Abrams and a C-5. That's their largest plane. You don't have enough C-5s to transport an entire tank division feasibly. And then, of course, you need someplace to land those suckers. Those are big aircraft. I don't even know if our runways could take aircrafts that size. They might, because we do take jumbos. I don't know if we take like A380s or 747s locally.
Trinidad Piaco is a very big airport.
Land
inside.
Yeah, still might not be big enough. Like I really don't. I'm talking like these are huge planes.
Yeah, but compared to anywhere else in the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean, and that might be why so far. Just saying. So I understand the concerns, but there would be indicators that you would see because the press would report it. Like it would be, you would have military reporters in the States like, oh my gosh, the 18th Airborne Corps is mobilizing. I wonder where they're going to go. And there's basically 3 places. And one is probably more likely than the other 2. There will be Ukraine or somewhere in Eastern Europe. There will be Israel. Very unlikely for those 2 things because no one seems to have the stomach to intervene. Or there's Venezuela, which has been on Trump's agenda long before Jeffrey Epstein was a thing.
Well, maybe it's not an invasion we're looking at. Maybe it's just a cartel issue they're really looking at. Maybe
it might be.
Maybe they come in to deal with the cartel as they indicated.
The thing is, with regards to the tariffs, they even had an acronym for Trump, TACO. Trump always chickens out because he was threatening these tariffs for months before he actually implemented it, right? It's almost like if he kind of knew, but he didn't want to give up the leverage. I'm giving you time.
Because, I mean, Trinidad is a transshipment point. We do have this vast amount of drugs coming through Trinidad and going elsewhere and whatnot. So
you see, the problem is, and this is where I think people are misreading the situation. I don't think Trump is trying to doing this to cover, distract people from the Epstein thing. I do think he actually is gung-ho about solving the problem. And they have a transnational crime problem coming from Latin America just as much as we do.
And he hasn't traditionally hidden his agenda. In most cases, he's always been verbal about it. So.
Right. And the thing is, Venezuela is kind of like a failed Middle Eastern state. That instability and breeding grounds for crime, we are feeling it. The Caribbean region, isn't violent crime in the Caribbean up in the last decade or less?
We do have cases where Latin American gangs have infiltrated across the Caribbean. We're talking about up and down the Caribbean. So they have their hands in the cookie jar across the board.
Okay, we do have a caller, but I'll just say this. Where it gets very tricky is to what extent do you believe America when they say Maduro is involved in the gangs, right? And that's when we could get into a real subjective, tricky debate, right? That I'm not necessarily ready to say, oh, this has to be true. Right? But maybe it's just the cartels because a Coast Guard assets only could do so much in light of a complete breakdown in law and order. With that, we'll take the call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air. Tune up on the line. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning to the panel.
Morning.
Yeah. I'm a senior citizen. And about 2 months ago, someone called me and telling me and the person speaking like a foreigner, like an American
Yeah.
slang, they have the voice, telling me I'm a member with the Samsung company, and I did many transactions, and I won a big amount of money, and they need some information from me. So I told them, because we are being educated on the television and on the news, what to do and what not to do, you know, as elderly, we always pay attention. So I told him, why are you calling me to tell me this? He said about 30 years you were dealing with Samsung and you won this big set of money. So I told him, I said, I never deal with Samsung a long time. It's just recently the children bought a phone, and it can be 30 years, about 4 or 5 years, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, good.
So he telling me I want so much money, that a lot of money, and he needs information from my bank and whatnot. I told him, I said, well, I don't deal with the bank because I don't deal with technology. My children does all my transactions together with me. So he realized I'm smart now. I told him, and it is true. So I told him, I said, well, if I want so much, he keep insisting, I want so much money, why don't you take the money and donate it to charitable organizations? Because there are many organizations with sick people, poor people who might need help. So you could go ahead and take it. Keep insisting. I said, well, I can't give you any information. Sorry, thank you.
And it's excellent you're calling and gave that example, because that's exactly some of the issues we've been talking about. That was excellent.
Caller, thank you. Caller, I am very impressed, and I'm very appreciative, and I'm very grateful. Not just your willingness to share your experience, but also to your family for being able to take care of you. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? All right, maybe you're not able to deal with all of this, but all right, your kids could help you out, but then you are still aware enough to give the appropriate response.
Give it to charity.
Caller, Tuna, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have another call on the line. Arima, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning to you and your guests.
Good day. How are you doing?
I have two questions for your guests. The first question deals with the headline in today's papers which says Tetron breached. Right?
Yeah.
Where a prisoner is still seen as being able to communicate with the outside.
Right.
I would like to know what are his views on the TNT government seeking assistance from the U.S. for this internal war on crime.
Well, I mean,
the second comment with regards to him is, Sean Michael Small, if you come up with a way to take $10,000 now and turn it to $50,000 by Carnival next year, would you go around seeking other people to get on board with you in that? I don't think so. So anybody coming to tell you, well, I give me $10,000 and we can turn it to $40,000 or $30,000 in 6 months.
Yes.
If you fall for that, well then you're a bigger fool than I thought.
Yeah.
Now with regards to today, just talking about CARICOM, I think it's time we revisit CARICOM and some of these regional institutions that we have in. Because UE is the only success story. But when you look at CXC, Cricket West Indies, the Caribbean Court of Justice, you look at all these regional institutions that are supposed to promote integration, they ain't cutting it. With regards to bashing the former Prime Minister and Mr. Nicholas, my take is this. The former Prime Minister made several mistakes. Venezuelan migrants, crime, economic development, social development. But what I would say is this. Become like a man getting a horn. You don't see it when you're in it. So people could tell you, well, hey, yeah, boy, she won in there, and you ain't really take it on. Because when you're on the outside looking in at somebody else, now, then you say, yeah, boy, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. So now that the gentleman has sat out of office and he's looking on, I think the brain cells now start to work back over. And that brings me on to this, the blame game. When we play in this blame game, well, it's not our fault, it's theirs. At the end of the day, what are the repercussions? Is the taxpayers paying the cost? So when the former finance minister decided to appeal concerning the Auditor General, knowing that they were lost,
Yeah.
because you have no foundation, but you're still going on appeal. We, the taxpayers, have to bear the brunt of that. I find it's time these things change. So, Michael Small, you're talking about Mr. Maduro. I wanted to ask a question as a journalist, right? If Mr. Maduro is a narco-terrorist, how come a warrant hasn't been issued for his arrest by the International Criminal Court of Justice? Because we have seen they have arrested leaders all over the. So how come he not on the list? And the last thing I want to tell you before I leave to give other callers a chance, I was doing a little research here. The USA has 342 million people with 3.81 million square miles. Venezuela has 28 million people with 352,000 square miles. Guyana has 850,000 people with 83,000 square miles. And we, Trinidad and Tobago, have 1.5 million people, 1,980 square miles. I just say I want to give it that because when they talk about the forces to invade Venezuela and the amount that it needs, Venezuela's population is 28 million. The USA has 340. So it's more than 11. Have a good day, gentlemen. I'll listen to a good program as usual.
Thank you, caller.
With respect to the first question,
Yeah.
so with crime, so he also spoke about the narco trafficking and whatnot, and it's an international crime. So what we have is transnational crime, we have international crime. We've always had help from foreign countries, with foreign institutions.
We had the Portugal seizure of cocaine,
Right.
which involved multiple countries, including us.
So we do appreciate the assistance from international bodies like that, including the FBI and the DEA and whatnot, who assist Trinidad officers in Trinidad. We've always had a good relationship with the embassy, the U.S. embassy, the English embassy, and even the Spanish embassy and whatnot, in contributing towards assisting in the fight against crime. As an officer with the Special Victims Department, I've often attended meetings with international bodies, and we speak about the what they call it, transnational crimes like human trafficking and whatnot, and we've come together and we've shared resources and we've shared intelligence.
Transnational crime, we think cocaine and guns.
No, we're also talking about
human
trafficking and whatnot. So yes, it is important because crime, as we said before, it evolves. It evolves beyond.
We have a caller.
Yeah.
I think the caller was going a step further than what currently exists. I'll explain what I mean by that after the call. Baratari on the line. Good morning, caller. You on here?
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. No, I just called. I heard a lady say she got a text from Samsung.
Yes.
A phone call, yeah.
That they win money and support.
Yeah.
You hear that?
Yeah, she did.
Yes.
Well, I was just calling to say that I got one too. That's all about it.
And how you dealt with that?
Caller?
Huh?
How you dealt with it?
They sent me text on the phone and I really they say the only way you know if you really text is if you put your name and your phone number and you get so much money, a washing machine and a t-shirt and if you read it as if you write it on the phone. And I told my grandmother I don't know nothing about text and thing. So I told my granddaughter to take it off the phone. But the person's picture is still on the phone.
Yeah. Well, good. ignore it, delete it, yeah.
Caller, thank you.
Okay, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. That's a good point. Thank you, caller, because just to clarify, you might think, oh, well, the scam is on phones, so text is safe. No, it'll be the same scam.
Everything, yeah.
Right, just they'll use all the different mediums.
Avenues, yeah.
I have gotten some very questionable texts before, and in my position, I'm not famous, but I do at times get texts from numbers who I'm not I'm not fully aware of every now and then.
And she did the correct thing. She ignored the text. She may have deleted it and whatnot.
Well, at the very least, yeah, you could potentially read it, but you have to be very wary of any links to open anything.
Yeah.
Right? Outside, because yes, if you're still in WhatsApp, right? But then if anything just looks even remotely different,
or suspicious,
then it's suspicious and a problem. Okay, I think what Arima was asking about is maybe more direct intervention, which is a bit trickier, right? Because in a way, to not just say, oh, they're giving us information and intelligence and helping us
they actually,
outside, but to say, I'm putting words in his mouth a little bit, potentially boots on the ground, investigative assistance.
No, but we have that assistance from different countries, the US, the English and whatnot. We had, in the case of SWAT, when we had SWAT, we had English officers on the ground working alongside law enforcement in Trinidad.
Okay.
I think in the 90s, before I was in law enforcement, you had the Weed Eater exercise where you had boots on the ground from the military, and they dealt with the scourge of what do you call it, the marijuana epidemic and whatnot. So you have cases, and it's always been a great assistance to Trinidad and Tobago. Politically, it's not a position for me to speak on.
Yes.
However, from law enforcement, because how crime evolves and it has international partners, illegal international partners, and the ramifications, we do seek assistance from our international colleagues. And they do assist us, even with boots on the ground, even with assistance in Trinidad. And we do appreciate it. And we've seen, with collaboration, we've been able to solve crime. I remember there was a US soldier who was murdered in Trinidad.
Right.
And we were able to solve the crime because of the assistance of the agents from the US.
I wonder if the caller wants to go even a step further and say have corruption cases be investigated.
Yeah, they have assisted with...
But I think the key point is domestic, not international, and like that's kind of harder, right? To some extent, right? To have domestic situations being investigated by foreign agents.
No. I don't think they wouldn't investigate, but they would lend assistance.
They will lend assistance, provide intelligence.
Of course.
So
intelligence and resources.
Like the caller, there might be a point where the law just literally will not account for that.
Yeah.
Like it will not allow that unless you make a whole new law. We have San Fernando waiting. We have to take the call. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, SPR.
Good day.
No, that's, I heard those other two callers talk about that Samsung email and phone, text and phone call.
Yeah.
And people need to just stop falling for, okay, if somebody said they win something, just let it go. I've gotten 2 of those texts on my phone. I just delete it. When I see the pair, okay, and I just delete it. Now, I would advise people to, just as you say, yes, parent, get online banking so you could check your accounts regularly and use secure messaging on those sites. For instance, if I need a check, I just use secure messaging, send the information to the bank for the check, and then they will respond to you on secure messaging. They would not respond to you on regular an email or a text. They would come back to you on that secure messaging site. So you have to actually log into your online banking to get the secure message from the bank.
That's excellent. Yeah.
So recently, I had ordered a check because I do that often, and then I got a phone call from the bank. It was actually from the bank, but I got a phone call. The gentleman says he's calling from the bank, and I first said, "Hold up, what's your name?" And he told me his name, and then I hung up the phone, and I called back the bank because it was unusual.
Yeah.
But it was the bank they said they instituted this to double check,
right?
Which in my opinion, is not a secure way.
Right.
So, but I did that. I hung up and called back the bank to find out if there's a gentleman by this name. He said yes. I said okay, transfer me to him, and then they transferred me to him, and then I spoke to him. It was just to double check the information that I sent for the check and that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I let him tell me what I sent.
Right.
You know, so they have ways. But Trinidad and Tobago people are so gullible when it comes to these online stuff.
People, yeah.
Well, I would say that's international, that's universal.
But can I?
Yeah, but Sean, when you have these things that you put in 10,000 and you're getting 55,000 in 10 days. That rubbish, that pyramid Ponzi scheme thing has been happening since the 80s in Trinidad, and people still falling for it.
And the Ponzi scheme itself is a very old scheme.
Ponzi scheme, I mean, look.
Old thing. They could dress it up and they just dress it up with a different name. Whatever you call it, is the same.
But can I ask a question? Because you said the bank called you to verify the check that you deposited.
No, I requested a check.
Oh, sorry. The number that they called from, did you recognize the number as the bank's number?
That particular number, because no, I didn't. Because let me say,
that is very important.
I have my branch.
Yeah.
I have all my branch information on my phone.
Right.
So it will show up, and I have all the numbers.
Well, you made a very good decision.
That number was not a familiar number.
Yeah.
Because it was actually, I am in South and I bank in South, but it was actually a Port of Spain number.
Right, but it was a good decision to have hung up the phone and call back, because I had experienced my particular bank calling me from a strange number and asking me for my banking information to verify my information so that they could ask me questions about my banking. So you're asking me to verify my personal information, and it was legitimately bank, and they were using a very strange number, and I had to call. I said, listen, I'm not comfortable giving you this, and the person was with a foreign accent, because they call him from a call center. And I was like, listen, I'm not comfortable giving you this information. I'll call the bank, and I called back the bank. I really didn't recognize the number. Only to find out it's really the bank's agent acting on their behalf.
Right. Okay. And hence the reason that's why I first asked the name. Tell me your name. Don't just come and start to talk to me. Tell me your name.
Yeah.
And then I hung up, and then I called.
Call back. Very good. Yeah. And that's a very good piece of advice.
But also you used a number that you had stored yourself from before.
Yes.
That is the key. I'll get into that. Why? Do you have anything afterwards? Do you have anything else to add?
One other thing, Sean. Let me say, I want to talk about this same issue quickly. Now, the most successful business model that we have to date internationally is transnational crime. Like the most successful business model. It is a strange thing to say, but if you look at it, when we had that CARICOM meeting talking about crime as a public health emergency and all that crap, look at transnational crime and how it has invaded, especially from Central America and South America, how it has invaded the Caribbean, how it has invaded Africa, how it has invaded Europe.
North America.
It is the most successful business model. I would like to study transnational crime as a subject. Now I'm saying this to say this. A lot of the drugs that are going into the US and Europe is not only by those narco subs, and they have a plethora of this. They send in every day. They send in stuff. So they send 1 million tons, but the intention of getting 100,000 tons inside.
Yeah,
that is the plan. Now, this issue with the U.S. government sending this flotilla, it is, let's call it what it is. It is trying to intimidate and possibly remove Nicolas Maduro from power. Not necessarily by invasion, could be by persuasion, and and trying to incite Venezuelans to overthrow their own their leader by showing support. That could be it. Look how we in the Caribbean now trying to pull down this one skirt, trying to pull off this one jersey. We in a big uproar among ourselves about what America plans to do and how they plan, because they don't care. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Exactly.
And we can't stop them.
Exactly.
And what it showed is how fractured CARICOM is.
Exactly.
And it's not going to get better. As the caller from Arima pointed out, a lot of stuff with CARICOM. CARICOM, it is not going to get better. It is so sad to see that what happened with the U.S. has shown up CARICOM. And Caribbean Unity, they really need to look at themselves and try and rebuild this thing, because it's not working in Ocean. It's not working. How long now that we hear they were trying to between Guyana, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago to get a ferry service running?
Yeah.
Up to now, nothing, because there's no unity in the CARICOM. So as far as I'm concerned, I just watching and hoping that if things start to fly, that nothing come in San Fernando and blow up nothing in San Fernando. And hopefully the rest of Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
Thank you, caller.
All right, take care.
Just, here's the thing. Based on how militaries actually work, I akin this to the phenomenon of the average citizen would think, well, if you open fire on a car, you might hit the gas tank with your pistol and cause it to explode.
Very rare.
Right. Yeah. Meanwhile, Mythbusters literally did everything they could, including using incendiary tracers, and couldn't get that sucker to light up for nothing, right? Like, we need to understand, like, the neighbors of Gaza, Egypt is not saying, oh my gosh, all of the ordnance that's hitting us by mistake is killing our people. Like, that's not happening. It's not that simple. The problem is not, and I know Mr. Fernando is making a joke, but I think there are a lot of people who don't fully understand what the implications are. If violence happens and the situation deteriorates, there's a vacuum, and that vacuum tends to cause problems like, you know, what fills the vacuum? Like Haiti, gangs fill the vacuum, lawlessness fills the vacuum. Here's the problem. We already have a lawlessness problem. We already have a humanitarian crisis problem. Or at least we had. Like I said, Venezuela seems stable now. But from what I understand, if you don't have a good job, it is really hard to live. Really hard to live, right? You need a good job you need a relatively good job, from what I understand, to have a relative quality of life than what you would have if you had an average job here. Because the availability of goods is just not apparent. So the price of everything is high. There's shortages. Like, there's stuff, right? People aren't starving to death, but it's just this weird situation that we don't know how strong the stability is. I don't think, though, the Americans could intimidate Venezuela to the point where the population will rise up. As much as local Venezuelans are reported to saying they hope something will happen, I don't know of any example where we park a ship and the local people say, to hell with you, and overthrow the government. Like, they overthrow the government because somebody takes out Maduro.
And if you compare it to Nazi Germany, you saw that even the Nazis were supported by the persons in Germany.
Because the people, like, we want to think all humans are generally good and we'll be the ones to go against the Nazis.
Because even if you had somebody like Hitler telling you something,
you
had persons, the entire country supported it.
The country went with it because once you have a certain momentum, it's very hard to be the person to stand out and say, no, this is wrong. We take for granted our freedom in countries like Trinidad and Tobago, where we have that capacity to openly criticize, right?
And Nicola made a very good point in terms of CARICOM. If CARICOM was strong enough, maybe we would not have this issue with, maybe we would have more say in whether the U.S. comes into the
but it comes back down to parts of CARICOM support Venezuela. So before. So, and I think that's at least part of what the caller was saying. We're not really unified. And this is coming from a guy, I have been saying CARICOM could be a very big benefit economically, not just for trade, but also for things like, look, if we need more medical specialists, well, then we have specialized hospitals across the region. So, anyway, they call me Tara. So the long and short is, oh, I have to make this point. San Fernando, he had the number saved. This is very important. If you get an email that you think is fraudulent, this might seem obvious, but not necessarily to the people in the moment. Don't use the phone number in the email that you suspect being fraudulent to then confirm is not fraudulent, because that phone number will probably be connected to these scammers, right? I just needed to say that.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
All right, so what's going to happen, as Nicola said, it's not really up to us, right? We have to, I think one of the commentators said we kind of have to deal with the fallout, whether we like it or not, right? Who's to blame, who's not to blame. We have to deal with the fallout, right? And Trump will do what he is to do. There's no Epstein or cover-up or distraction or nothing. He was on this bandwagon for a long time. They have a transnational crime problem. We have a transnational crime problem. If you don't fully believe in what the American government is trying to sell you, that's fine, but that doesn't mean that the entire scenario is not true. And that's why, and again, going back to one of the comments that was touting my praises, but I said, oh, hold up, to some extent, don't just assume what I'm saying is correct though. But that caller was looking at the fact that I tried to give a holistic analysis, right? Let's just say we don't believe Trump fully, but the transnational crime issue is very real. So to what extent now should we be condemning it like how we could just condemn it out of hand in other situations? It's not so simple. And I say all that just to remind people, ultimately, that was the point of me speaking out about it, was to point out that the positions that a lot of people are taking that are experts or oversimplifications that are less useful than you think. It's not about who's right, but at the very least, the analysis should not be limited in its scope and limited in the amount of information it's trying to deal with and perspectives it's trying to deal with and factors it's trying to deal with. All right, thanks to SPRing for joining me. That's important. People, please, if you didn't know, now you know. Spread the word to all your friends. Be wary about online fraud, phishing scams, etc., etc. Thanks to the callers. Thanks to the commenters. Again, having the conversation, even if we disagree or maybe we kind of halfway disagree, it's important in order to continue having constructive discussions as opposed to having dueling press conferences. With that said, Sean Michael Small, this is Talking About WSND Content Capital. Have a good day. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Stay safe and never forget, it's nice to be nice so that we could all have it'll just be nicer to be happy. So when we see each other tomorrow, bye-bye.
WESN.
WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines.